Mark, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, fellas, and I want you to know that despite your failure to schedule stiff competition, you both have made my friendship bracket.
What seed are we?
I don't want to get into the seeds because, I don't want to hurt your feelings, but you're in.
Okay, hey.
And
that's good. It's better than St. Mary's.
You might be in a playing game, but you're in.
All right, we'll take it.
We would take that in the NCAA tournament.
We'll take it
right
and
now.
run with it. Mark, when you saw BYU on the same line as Stanford in that 3-6 matchup, what was your immediate reaction?
I liked it. I liked it a lot. First, I liked that BYU got in, which wasn't a given. And then, listen, we all understand the NIT. It's not the NCAA tournament, but I just like basketball. And, you talk about playing good teams, and I know it's not the preseason, but it's fun to play good teams. It's fun to play Stanford to me. And you're getting a chance to play extra basketball. Go to their place and see what you got. I mean, that's a challenge, and that's fun. As a player, I wanted to do that, and as a fan and an announcer, I like doing those kind of things. So, I mean, it's obviously not ideal. It's not what people want, but you've got a game against Stanford, and that's pretty cool, and you get a chance to show that you can compete with those guys.
Okay, so BYU's in the NIT. Much has been made of, hey, BYU didn't make the NCAA tournament, but it was still a decent season. The Cougars knock out St. Mary. How have you felt about this season going into the NIT?
Well, I think it's been a good season. Listen, you lose Eric Mika and Nick Emery. That's tough. I mean, you want to say, well, we'll just move on and next guy up and all that stuff. But Eric Mika was a premier type center. And if you don't think he wouldn't have made a difference in many games, you're crazy. And, BYU, it's not like they're that far off, and you get a couple more wins and maybe you're talking about getting an NCAA tournament. But obviously he left and Nick was gone. So you do the best with what you can do. And I thought Yoli had just an unbelievable year. Elijah Bryant stepped up and was fantastic. And you got some other good performances. I thought Dalton Nixon really showed a lot towards the end of the year. And Jashir Hardnett was solid. I mean, it was a good year. And if you don't think so, you're crazy. Is it where you want to be? No. You want to be in the tournament. You want to be winning your conference. But I like this team a lot. I thought they played hard defense, which means a lot to me. And I thought that they did a lot of really good things. And we talk about youth, but the reality is they're young. And this team just needs to get old together. They need to stick together, and then they need to get older together. And you're going to be able to accomplish some of those higher goals that you have that maybe you didn't get this year, even though you did have a really good year.
Mark, disappointment generally comes from expectations, and they're one thing, and then you don't accomplish them, right? So how should we manage expectations with BYU basketball? It's been a few years since, the Sweet 16 run with Jimmer Fredette from conference championships. BYU's in a league with Kansas, a.k.a. Gonzaga. How should we manage expectations with NCAA tournaments and NITs and conference championships now?
Well, I'm an expert on not meeting expectations, so I'm the right guy to talk to here. It's tough. I sat there watching the tournament selection show and seeing St. Mary's not get in, and Gonzaga, ranked in the top 5, 6, 7 in the country, get a 4 seed, and I'm saying to myself, this is a whole new deal. This is going to be a lot tougher going forward to get a bid if you're BYU and you don't get in. A Power 6 conference, whatever, you're going to have to, and Dave Rose talked about it, I think, with you guys, you're going to have to do things a lot differently from here on out. And you're going to have to find a way to bridge the gap between you and Gonzaga. And I certainly don't have the answers to all that, but status quo is just not going to get it done. I think Dave Rose knows that. And, the evidence is pretty glaring. Even in the NIT, BYU is a 6 seed, which is fine. Utah gets, a 2 seed. BYU wins 5 more games than them. BYU beats them. And because Utah is in the Pac-12, they're a 2 seed. I mean, what other explanation can you have for that? And I think if you're an objective observer, you think, well, that's a little bit strange. And anyway, I mean, it's a new model. It's all about getting quadrant one wins. I mean, Arizona State gets in. It was ridiculous to me. I thought they finished the season awfully. Oklahoma was awful, but earlier in the year they got the big quadrant one wins, and I mean, it's a whole new model. So you need to schedule those teams and hope you win it, and then not fall apart in your own conference if you're in a conference like the West Coast Conference. It's a whole new landscape, and Dave Rose has some real challenges, but all you can do is try and get the best players you can get to BYU and keep those guys there and get experience and be one of those teams that is a good senior-laden team that can really compete at a high level with some of the best teams in the country.
Mark Durrant with us on BYU Sports Nation, former Cougar basketballer and current BYU Sports Nation lawyer. I believe that contract is finalized now, right, Mark?
It's being looked at by another lawyer.
That's how we get you.
Okay, yeah, we're working on that. I think it's pretty clear that we can decipher that BYU beating St. Mary's got the Cougars an NIT bid and likewise kept the Gales out of the NCAA tournament. What was your reaction to St. Mary's not getting into the tournament because BYU beat them in the semifinals of the WCC tournament?
Well, I loved it. I mean, well, I'm kind of Jekyll and Hyde about it. I loved it because I want, they're for a lot of reasons. They're not my favorite group, and they've beaten us, so I've got some hard feelings there. So, but so that made me happy. But it as far as for BYU and the conference, that was a real slap in the face. I mean, that is ridiculous to me. And everyone says, tweet at me and say, well, you got to schedule out of conference. Well, duh. That's clearly why they didn't get in. But that doesn't change the fact that they should have been in. They were a ranked team forever, and they were an excellent team, and they should be in. And so that I take no satisfaction from that, but I do, the St. Mary's Tears they taste pretty good to me. But as far as the conference and what that means to BYU and like I said, the whole landscape going forward, that is really concerning to me, that a team that like St. Mary's, with the power numbers they have, with their rankings, and they don't get in. And at some point, it can't just be about quadrant one wins. It's got to be about who's the best teams. And just the eye test, watching St. Mary's and watching a ton of basketball this year, St. Mary's, to have them not in the NCAA tournament is just crazy to me. It's ridiculous.
Yes.
And I think they could have won a couple games, and they're not even in it.
Mark, great stuff, man. We appreciate the time, and hope you enjoy your trip to Northern California. Hopefully there's more basketball after that trip to Northern California for BYU. Safe travels, man.